Creek, Montana, hung heavy with the scent of pine and regret. The town, a speck on the map, cradled a secret that would unravel its quiet charm. The Harlan family, pillars of the community, lived in a sprawling Victorian house on the edge of town. Their lives to outsiders seemed idyllic, a perfect blend of faith, discipline, and small-town values. But beneath the polished exterior, a darkness festered, one that would erupt in a tragedy that left the town reeling. Margaret Harlan, the matriarch, was a woman of unyielding conviction. Her auburn hair, always pulled into a tight bun, mirrored her rigid control over her family. She believed in order, in rules that tethered her 3 children, Elijah, Ruth, and young Samuel, to a life of purity. Her husband, Thomas, a soft-spoken carpenter, deferred to her in all things. Their home was a fortress of routine. Prayers at dawn, chores until dusk, and evenings spent reading scripture by the flicker of a single lamp. The children were forbidden from modern distractions. No television, no internet, no music that didn't glorify God. Margaret's rules were law, enforced with a quiet intensity that left no room for rebellion. Elijah, the eldest at 24, was the family's pride. He had a gentle demeanor and a knack for woodworking, crafting intricate furniture that sold at local markets. Ruth, 20, was quieter, her eyes always searching for something beyond the horizon. Samuel, just 16, was the dreamer, sketching landscapes in secret notebooks he hid under his floorboards. The Harlans were devout, attending Willow Creek's only church every Sunday, their voices rising in hymns that echoed through the pews. To the townsfolk, they were the embodiment of virtue. But virtue in Willow Creek was a fragile facade. The trouble began in the spring of 2023, when a reality TV show called Family Trade came to town. The premise was simple. 2 families swapped a member for 2 weeks, forcing them to adapt to new rules and lifestyles. The Harlans, persuaded by Elijah's quiet insistence, agreed to participate. Margaret saw it as a chance to showcase her family's righteousness. The producers paired them with the Carters, a boisterous family from Seattle who lived for freedom and spontaneity. The contrast was electric. When Dana Carter, the Carter matriarch, arrived at the Harlan home, she was stunned. The children's schedules were written in Margaret's precise handwriting, pinned to the kitchen wall. Breakfast at 6 a.m., chores from 6:30 to noon, Bible study until supper. Any deviation cost them privileges. Elijah once lost a week of market visits for oversleeping by 5 minutes. Dana, with her bright lipstick and infectious laugh, was horrified. She tossed the schedule into the fireplace and declared the kids deserved fun. She bought them a portable radio, tuned it to a pop station, and watched their faces light up with confusion and delight. Ruth was the first to crack. The music, forbidden for so long, stirred something in her. She danced awkwardly in the living room, her laughter tinged with fear. Samuel, wide-eyed, joined her, his sketches forgotten. But Elijah stood apart, his hands clenched at his sides. "This isn't right," he muttered, his voice low. Dana tried to coax him, but he retreated to the barn, where he spent hours sanding wood until his palms bled. Dana's heart broke for him. "He's trapped," she confided to the camera. "This isn't a home. It's a cage." Back in Seattle, Margaret struggled with the Carters' chaos. Their teenage daughter, Mia, stayed up past midnight playing video games. Their son, Lucas, ate pizza for breakfast. Margaret tried to impose her rules, insisting on morning prayers and chore lists, but the Carters laughed her off. "Lighten up, Maggie," Mia teased. Margaret's lips tightened, her eyes cold. She felt exposed, humiliated. The experience only hardened her resolve. When she returned to Willow Creek, she doubled down, banning any trace of Dana's influence. The radio was smashed, the children's privileges revoked. The Family Trade episode aired in June 2023, painting the Harlans as rigid zealots. The town watched, whispering behind their hands. Some admired Margaret's discipline, others pitied the children. Elijah, Ruth, and Samuel felt the weight of the town's gaze, their isolation deepening. Margaret forbade them from speaking about the show, but the damage was done. Cracks had formed in the family's foundation. Elijah began to change. Once the obedient son, he grew restless. He'd sneak into town at night, lingering outside the diner where teenagers laughed over milkshakes. He'd stare at the neon sign, its glow a forbidden temptation. Ruth noticed his absences, but said nothing, her own heart heavy with unspoken dreams. Samuel, too young to understand, sensed the tension. He drew darker sketches now, storm clouds, jagged cliffs, faces twisted in pain. By winter, the Harlan home was a pressure cooker. Margaret's rules grew stricter. She installed locks on the children's bedrooms, claiming it was for their safety. Thomas, ever passive, nodded along. Elijah's woodworking slowed. His creations, once flawless, now bore uneven edges. Ruth stopped speaking at meals, her eyes distant. Samuel's sketches vanished. He'd burned them in the backyard, tears streaming down his face. On February 12, 2024, at 3:17 a.m., a 911 call came from the Harlan residence. The line was silent, save for a faint sob before it disconnected. Sheriff Laura Bennett, a seasoned officer with a soft spot for Willow Creek, led the response. The house loomed in the pre-dawn mist, its windows dark. The front door was ajar, creaking in the wind. Laura's flashlight caught a glint on the porch, a kitchen knife, its blade streaked with blood. Inside, the living room was a slaughterhouse. Margaret lay crumpled by the fireplace, her throat slashed, her auburn hair matted with blood. Thomas was sprawled near the staircase, a deep gash across his chest. Upstairs, Samuel's body was found in his locked room, his wrists cut, a sketch of a broken tree clutched in his hand. The deputies searched for Elijah and Ruth, but they were gone. A trail of blood led to the barn. There, Elijah sat on a hay bale, his hands stained red, the knife at his feet. His eyes were vacant, his voice a whisper. "It's over," he said. Laura cuffed him, her heart pounding. Ruth was found an hour later, hiding in the woods, shivering and mute. The town was stunned. The Harlans, the perfect family, had shattered in a single night. The investigation unfolded slowly. Elijah confessed to the murders, but offered no motive. "I had to," he said, his voice flat. Ruth, when she finally spoke, described a life of suffocation. Margaret's rules, she said, had stripped them of identity. Elijah, she claimed, had always been the protector, shielding her and Samuel from their mother's wrath. But something had snapped. The Family Trade episode, Ruth believed, had planted a seed. Elijah saw a world he could never join, and it broke him. Detectives dug deeper. Elijah's journal, hidden in the barn, revealed a mind unraveling. "I'm nothing," he wrote. "No self, no future. Just her rules." He described nightmares of fire, of his family burning. Psychologists speculated he suffered from undiagnosed schizophrenia, exacerbated by years of isolation. Margaret's control, they said, may have mirrored obsessive-compulsive tendencies, her need for order suffocating her children's spirits. Ruth's testimony painted a complex picture. She loved Elijah, but feared him. He'd spoken of freeing the family, of ending their pain. Samuel's death, she said, was a mercy in Elijah's twisted mind. He believed his brother was too fragile for the world. Margaret and Thomas were collateral damage, their deaths a release for Elijah's rage. Yet Ruth's own role was murky. Blood on her clothes suggested she wasn't just a bystander, but she claimed she'd only tried to stop him. The trial began in October 2024. Elijah pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity. His defense argued that years of psychological abuse had driven him to a breaking point. The prosecution countered that his actions were calculated, pointing to the deliberate cuts and the locked doors. Ruth, a key witness, broke down on the stand, sobbing as she described Elijah's descent. "He wasn't always like this," she whispered. "He just wanted to be free." Willow Creek grappled with the fallout. The church held vigils, but attendance dwindled. The Harlan house stood empty, its windows boarded up. Rumors swirled. Some said Margaret's ghost haunted the barn, others that Elijah had been possessed. The family trade producers faced backlash, accused of exploiting a vulnerable family. They issued a statement, denying responsibility, but the show was cancelled soon after. Elijah was convicted of 3 counts of first-degree murder on December 15, 2024. The judge, moved by Ruth's testimony and the psychological evidence, sentenced him to life in a psychiatric facility rather than prison. Ruth, cleared of charges, left Willow Creek, her whereabouts unknown. The town tried to heal, but the scars remained. The Harlan tragedy became a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the most devout facade could hide a storm of despair. What drove Elijah to such violence? Was it Margaret's iron grip, the glimpse of freedom from family trade, or a mind broken by silence? The truth, like Willow Creek's fog, remains elusive. The only certainty is the blood on the floor, the sketches in the fire, and a family torn apart by the weight of its own rules.